So I was on Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called, the other day, and I was scrolling through, and I stopped on a tweet by James Alexander, who's at Script by James on Twitter. He is, if you're not following him, a great presence. He's positive. He loves stories and storytelling, is really smart about them. And if you're looking for good screenwriting people to follow, he's a great one. But anyway, he asked a really interesting question, which I think the answer that he calls out as the answer the majority of people who gave him isn't quite right, and I want to talk about it. So here's the tweet. When you're reading a script, within how long can you tell whether the writer knows what they're doing? I'm not asking how many pages you read, that depends on context, but rather how fast you can go, oh yeah, they know what they're doing. A page? 5 pages? Half a page? 1 scene? And after allowing a bunch of people to answer and seeing what the responses were, this is his follow-up tweet to that question. Appreciate all the responses. I typically hear 1 scene or 1 page. This is a good range of answers. I genuinely do wonder how many folks read through this thread and then went and reread the first pages of all their pilot slash scripts. Me, I'm talking about me. Your mileage may vary. So 1 scene or 1 page, according to the poll, the self-selecting poll of people on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called, is the answer to how long can you tell whether the writer knows what they're doing? And I don't think that that's the correct answer. The answer of 1 page or half a page or 1 scene is the answer to a different question. That is the answer to the question, at what point do you know that somebody doesn't know what they're doing? At what point can you say this person does not know how to write? And for me, it's within the first 1 to 3 pages. Or about the first scene. But to the question, when do you know that a writer knows what they're doing? To me, the answer is by the end of their script. By the end of 1 script. It is the entire script to find out if they know what they're doing. Because while I can tell that someone is a good and competent writer within the first page to 3 pages in terms of verbiage and wordsmithing and being able to communicate an idea and a visual, like that's a no-brainer. But to know whether they're a good writer, you have to know whether they commit through the entire story they're telling. And the reason that it takes me until the end of a script to know whether a writer knows what they're doing is because I cannot tell you how many times as an exec I would read a script, whether it was a blind submission or something that came in from a known entity, a producer who you'd worked with before, a financier, an agent, a manager. And the beginning would just be on point, solid. I felt really comfortable. These writers obviously knew what they were doing. And then as the story went on, certain plot threads that were brought out in the beginning were dropped. The tone that was so strong in the opening 5 to 10 pages kind of trickled away until the writing style was just flat. And the ending didn't feel satisfying or impactful, and it didn't feel like it fully connected to all of the story that was set up at the beginning. These writers, for lack of a better term, and pun, I guess, just reluctantly intended, these writers lost the plot. Somewhere along the way, that attention to detail and that intention of writing with everything they had, of putting their whole tone into it, making sure that everything was set up meticulously, it all just kind of fell off the track. And I have to blame, in part, this reliance on the idea of the first 10 pages are the most important, the first 5 pages are the most important, the first scene's the most important, the first 3 pages are the most important, the first page is the most important. I learned very quickly, especially as an assistant, that I was not going to go running into my boss's office when I was 35 pages into a script to say, this is amazing, you have to read it. Because more often than not, by page 75, I would just be thinking, what happened? What happened to the story that I was so excited about 40 pages ago? A lot of screenwriting gurus and screenwriting advice are get them hooked in the first 5 pages, 10 pages, scene, 1 page, etc. And it's to the detriment of the rest of the script because everyone's polishing that beginning so many times because they know how important it is to grab people's attention. But the problem at a certain point isn't grabbing someone's attention and getting them excited. It's keeping that attention throughout the entire script, whether it's 30 pages as a comedy half hour or a whole 120-page feature. If at the end of the script you don't have that feeling of satisfaction, of accomplishment, of questions, if I'm not pressing the screen of my iPad or Kindle, trying to get to the next page, and then I realize that no, the story's over, and I don't have that next page to look forward to, it doesn't really matter how great those first 1, 5, 10 pages are. If you can't finish what you've started, you're a good wordsmith. You have a good fluidity with language. You're a good communicator, but you're not a good storyteller. But I bring this all up because I am currently sitting on draft 7 of Back to You, my contained romantic comedy, which is the feature that I've written that's going to be my directorial debut, and I'm documenting the making of it here on this channel. And I'm sitting on this draft because I want to wait to have a table read when the WGA strike is resolved, because to not wait and to mount a public table read that I'll put on this channel would be considered strike breaking, and I'm not down for that. So I have been saying I'm just going to sit, I'm not going to do any more revisions, but reading this tweet and thinking these thoughts has me wondering, maybe there's something I could be doing before this table read. Maybe one more revision, and maybe not even so much a revision as it is a polish. Maybe I take my script and break it down into chunks, like maybe even just scenes based on the slug lines. And every day I work on one scene. And so that's maybe 1 to 3 pages a day. In some cases, my scenes are like 8 pages long because I write long, because this is a two-hander. It's a contained romantic comedy, so it's within one house in a small time period. So there's, sometimes with a lot of talking, but I focus on one scene at a time because I'm pretty sure I have my story ready. But what if what if my tone has gone away? What if there's parts of the writing that could be heightened or made more exciting? Or what if I come across in this one scene a day focus where I'm not rushing through the whole script and super fresh at the beginning and then tired at the end? Because going from beginning to end, how we do when we're revising, because we want to make sure the story fits together, is a really great way to get a good overarching picture of the story. But in terms of this phenomenon that I've witnessed as a former exec, at a certain point, you get tired. And it's easier to let little things go. So what if I go through my script one more time, scene by scene, and take the energy that I have in revising, put it into that one scene for the day, and really focus on the nitty-gritty of the writing. And now, obviously, this technique wouldn't necessarily work if I was thinking about plot issues or how everything ties together, but maybe in doing a really close reading of my script and doing a really close reading of every scene, I come across something that doesn't work. And then I have something that I can revise because I'm paying such close attention to each scene that I might notice something about the story that's not quite working. I think it's a worthwhile experiment. And so I'm going to give it a start as soon as I finish the lookbook for Back to You. And hopefully I find places in the middle and the end of my script where I could be a little bit more intentional. So just another example of how when you think a script is done, it never really is. But before I get into that close reading, I think I need to finish this lookbook that I'm doing for Back to You. And hopefully next week I will have a lookbook to show you guys. So that's my goal for next week, to share my lookbook with you, share what your creative goals are in the comments below, and I will see you all next week here on another episode of Cake Fight Presents The Making Of. Thank you all so much for watching.